Law enforcement officers often confront a myriad of violent and unsettling criminals throughout their careers. However, a complex situation arises when they find themselves having to apprehend their own children. Let's get right into it. In an incident that occurred on December 28, 2022, a witness reported observing a white vehicle collide with a traffic light and hastily leave the scene. Notably, a fragment of the vehicle's bumper was left behind. Roughly 15 minutes later, law enforcement located the vehicle at a nearby gas station. To their astonishment, the driver turned out to be the least expected individual, adding a layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. Returning from Applebee's, the young woman admits to having consumed an alcoholic beverage. When asked about her age, she responds with uncertainty, stating that she's around 21. The conversation takes a surprising turn as she reveals that her father holds a notable position as a police officer.
My dad is The
officers noticed a piece of her car's bumper on the road, leading them to inquire if she had a pull. Despite her denial, it becomes evident that the situation is more complex. It appears she mentioned her father's profession in the hopes of receiving favorable treatment, but the officers on the scene realize that the circumstances go beyond that. The narrative continues with her explaining their route after leaving Applebee's and taking a shortcut through the plaza. As the conversation continues, they discuss the locations of Lowe's and Chick-fil-A, where she confirms having been. The officers inquire about the traffic pole she apparently hit, to which she admits hitting it and points out that her bumper was already damaged.
This part was hanging off already. I hit a deer in Pennsylvania because I go to school in...
She attributes the initial damage to hitting a deer in Pennsylvania, where she attends school. When asked about recreational marijuana use, she denies partaking. However, her explanation becomes increasingly dubious. She suggests that her bumper, which had been damaged in Pennsylvania, coincidentally fell off just as her car, identical to the one involved in the accident, hit a traffic light. Teresa repeatedly mentions her father, who holds a position with the sheriff's department, hoping he might assist her. Nevertheless, as the conversation unfolds, the officers, despite her father's potential involvement, begin to unravel the truth behind the incident and extract some elements of honesty from Teresa. Teresa's actions seem to be driven by a mix of fear and uncertainty. The officers probe further, suggesting that she might have driven away from the scene because she was nervous about potentially being drunk after having had a drink. However, they observe that she doesn't exhibit signs of intoxication. She's encouraged to be honest about what happened after leaving Applebee's. The officers emphasize that she hit a conspicuous traffic signal with red, green, and yellow lights. Despite Teresa initially claiming to have hit a curb, the officers clarify that she struck the traffic signal, causing it to fall down before leaving the scene. She makes multiple references to her father, seemingly hoping he can intervene on her behalf. However, the officers reveal that her father wasn't the one driving her vehicle that day. In the course of this brief conversation, Teresa eventually admits hitting the traffic signal, being more intoxicated than initially suggested, and texting while driving, 3 separate driving infractions, each carrying its own potential consequences. Subsequent to the revelation of the truth, the investigators decide to involve Teresa's father, John, with the hope of his assistance. However, it becomes clear that John isn't present to rescue his daughter from the situation. The detectives initiate a conversation with John, asking about Teresa's well-being and the car's damage. John points out that the car had sustained prior damage due to a deer collision, specifically on the front right bumper. However, he notes that the current extent of damage is far more severe. John is given the option to step outside to speak with the detectives, and they mention that he could accompany them if Teresa agrees. He acknowledges that Teresa is aware of her actions and suggests he might drive her home. The detectives express their gratitude, and John agrees to join them outside for further discussion. The conversation concludes with mutual understanding and acceptance of the forthcoming interaction. Teresa's hope for her dad's help doesn't seem to be working, and shortly after, her dad arrives at the scene to talk to the police officers. The things she's been saying are a bit confusing, so the officers are trying to understand more. They're looking at a part of the car's bumper. They ask if the other part of the bumper looked different, and she says yes. The officers explain that the missing piece was connected to the scratches on the car, which she says came from the earlier deer collision. The main officer says that they have the final say and they're asking for more information. At first, the initial officers at the scene appear somewhat anxious, as if they expect John to make excuses for his daughter. Their unease grows when he asks about their supervisor. While there have been instances of officers in higher positions misusing their authority to protect family members, the situation changes as the officers realize that John is actually trying to gather information to assess the incident fairly. This becomes clear as he reviews text messages from his daughter to piece together a timeline of events. He shares this with the officers, showing a message where she said she was home at 10:39 p.m. He speculates that the call she made might have been her asking for advice after the accident, somewhere between 10:45 and 11 o'clock p.m. As they talk to her, it becomes apparent that she's aware he's a cop, and he believes she knows better than to do that, likely referring to leaving the scene. Well, perhaps she didn't realize it, but she wasn't lying. It's possible she didn't even look closely at the car to see any differences. Even though John was ready to assist the officers, the sergeant at the scene asked him not to be involved. This was to make sure the investigation stayed unbiased. Everything, except Teresa's actions, has gone very well and shows good police work. So the focus goes back to what Teresa said earlier.
Do you smoke marijuana recreationally?
No, I do not smoke marijuana universally.
Do you have another unit out with you?
Oh my God, he's the sheriff's
Alright,
officer.
hang out. Drive away because you're scared because you maybe had one drink and you think you're drunk?
Yeah.
And you might get arrested, but you don't seem like you're drunk?
Yes.
So you want to just tell the truth?
Yes, I'm telling you the
So when after Applebee's, did you hit a traffic pole? You can't miss it. It lights up. It's red, green, and yellow.
I hit a curb.
Earlier, she mentioned having only one drink at Applebee's, but it now appears she might have been more drunk than they thought. Their suspicions were confirmed after they made her do some tests to check her coordination. Then they realized that something wasn't right.
What's going on?
Hey, John, how are you? So your daughter hit a traffic pole. Okay. So what she's saying, like, and where the damage was and everything, doesn't really make too much sense. So tried to get some more information out of her, but and then that piece of buffer there. So for the other one, was it just like the buffer wasn't hanging like that?
Yeah, no. So what it was is basically this was intact.
Okay.
This piece was missing. The scratches here. That's all from.
Her dad was there too. After her dad convinced her, she was taken to the police station, where they tested her blood alcohol level. It turned out to be 17%, which is more than twice the legal limit for driving.
And everything that happened today, right? I don't think that you were okay to take me out there for motor vehicle.
Up until now, Teresa has been waiting for her punishment, but she's been given a court summons for driving under the influence, reckless driving, and not reporting the accident as required. Teresa's dad followed all the right steps, but Kenneth Adams' father acted quite differently when he tried to misuse his authority as a commissioner to save his son from going to jail. Let's understand what happened. In November 2022, Kenneth Adams got pulled over for not stopping at a stop sign and not using his turn signal. But there was more to his situation than he knew. When the officer checked his driver's license, they found out that Kenneth had a warrant for a crime involving stealing a vehicle and burglary. The situation changed quickly. Kenneth got defensive and didn't want to get out of his car when the officer asked him to. He seemed surprised and confused about what was happening. In simple terms, while Teresa's dad followed the rules, Kenneth's father tried to use his position to protect his son from getting into trouble. Kenneth was stopped by an officer for not obeying traffic rules, but it turned out he had a warrant for more serious crimes. When the officer found out about the warrant, Kenneth got nervous and didn't cooperate. Teresa's dad followed the rules well, but Kenneth Adams' dad tried to use his influence to help his son escape trouble. Kenneth was stopped by the police for breaking traffic rules, but it turned out he had a warrant for more serious crimes. He didn't want to cooperate and got upset. Kenneth claimed he had already been to court for his previous crimes, but the warrant was still active because he didn't provide the right documents to prove it. Without those documents, the court couldn't confirm he attended, so the police took him to the station. Kenneth's father, Bruce Adams, arrived at the scene. He's a commissioner in the area. He demanded to know what was happening and seemed to use his power inappropriately. Bruce wanted the police to release Kenneth, but the officer stood his ground. He explained that the warrant was valid. Bruce was trying to influence the situation to help his son avoid the law. The officer didn't give in to Bruce's pressure. In the end, Kenneth was released as the warrant was withdrawn. Bruce faced no consequences. However, the officers who arrested Kenneth weren't as lucky. Another case involved Marion Humphrey Jr., a law student. He was pulled over for driving dangerously. He remained respectful and calm during the stop, even calling his dad to listen in. The officers searched his vehicle but found nothing. Marion later filed a lawsuit against the officers, claiming they violated his rights. And that's that for today's video, folks. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content. Also, don't forget to comment below and let us know which things impressed you the most. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.